Good morning. This is Judge Chiara, and we're hearing the matters of State of Utah versus Dylan Thomas.
Yes, I'm here, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Irvin, we've got no speaker from you. You're not muted, but speaker's not working. Barely. Go ahead and speak again.
Is that
No, I barely hear you.
now? Is that any better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Ms. Fuller had a scheduling, so I'm happy to cover for her. She may be joining. If not, we're prepared.
Okay. All right, we're here for preliminary hearing. There are two cases. Mr. Charles, which one are you going to do first?
The older one, the 2023 case ending in 011.
Okay. All right, call your first witness.
State calls Deputy C.J. Cox.
All right, Deputy Cox, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give in this matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Deputy Cox, will you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Deputy Charles Cox, C-O-X.
And tell me, if you would, how you're currently employed.
Currently employed with the Duchesne County Sheriff's Office as a patrol officer.
Were you employed in that capacity on July 2nd of 2023?
Yes,
Do you recall if you were on duty on that date?
I do.
During your shift on July 2nd of 2023, did you have any reason to have contact with Dylan Thomas?
Yes.
Are you able to see multiple people on your screen right now in different windows?
Yes,
Do you see Mr. Thomas in any of those windows?
I do.
Could you describe just kind of what he looks like or what he's wearing, if you're able to tell?
Looks like he's wearing a red shirt, kind of curly hair, some facial hair.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect that he's indicated the defendant in this case.
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Cox, where were you when you first had contact with Mr. Thomas?
I was at the Defa's Ranch in Hannah.
Is that within the boundaries of Duchesne County?
It is.
Okay. Tell me how you first had contact with him.
So I was there investigating a separate case, and while I was there, I was called to a disorderly incident by other people that were at the ranch.
Okay. Do you know who it was that called you to this disorderly incident?
I know one of them was Brock Margitz.
Okay. Based on what they had told you, what, if anything, did you do?
So, based on what they had told me is that there's a male causing problems for the manager in her camper, and that I needed to go and deal with the person. So I went over towards the camper, and I observed the defendant in his vehicle next to the camper.
Okay. What kind of a vehicle was he in?
It was a smaller pickup truck.
Okay. Where was he in the vehicle?
He was in the driver's seat, and he had the key in his hand.
Okay. Was the engine running?
No, but the engine compartment was still warm. I'd also received reports that he had been driving around with the defendant from another case in the
Your
vehicle.
Honor, I'm going to object. He's saying received reports. Are those from other officers or individuals under 1102?
From one of
Charles, will
the
you get some
cases.
foundation on that?
Who told you, or who are you referring to when you say that you'd received other reports?
Brock Margitz, one of the witnesses on the report.
Okay, we'll skip over that for now. But I do have a follow-up question for you on You said the engine compartment was warm. Explain to me in a little bit more detail how you were able to tell that.
So I was actually there with another deputy, Deputy Matt Borelli, and he had felt the engine compartment and felt that it was still warm.
Okay, so was your belief that it was still warm based entirely on what you had been told by Deputy Borelli?
From what I recall, I don't remember if I felt it myself.
Okay. Had you seen Mr. Thomas driving personally at any time that night while you were there?
No, however, I had observed the vehicle in a different area when I was there just a couple hours previously.
Okay. Did you run any checks on registration or anything to find out who the vehicle belonged to?
I believe what I recall, it was a Wyoming plate, and I do believe it was owned by the defendant.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with Mr. Thomas?
I did.
Did he say anything about how he had got to that location or how the truck had got to that location?
I don't recall if I had that conversation with him.
Okay. Did you have any reason to believe that he might be under the influence during your conversations with him?
I did. He had red and watery eyes. His speech was slurred. And even when I was there just a couple hours earlier, he appeared very intoxicated when I was there investigating the other incident.
Okay. And was that also on the DeFa's Dude Ranch?
Yes.
Okay. Based upon what you saw, and referring specifically at this point to believing that he was under the influence, what, if anything, did you do?
So at that point, I had him step out of the vehicle to conduct standard field sobriety test.
Okay, and what test did you perform?
So the first test that I performed was the horizontal gaze nystagmus task, and then the second task that I performed was the walk and turn task. And those are the two tests that I performed with him.
Okay, let's talk first about the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. Did you explain to him what he needed to do to perform that test?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did he perform the test?
He did. I had to remind him several times to not turn his head. By the conclusion of that, I observed all 6 clues for this test.
Okay, and just briefly, what are the clues that you're looking for?
So the clues that I'm looking for are lack of smooth pursuit, distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation, and onset of nystagmus prior to 45 degrees.
Okay, and you said you observed all 6 clues. Is 6 the total amount of clues that you're looking for in that test?
Yes, it's a clue in each eye on each pass.
Okay. And then you said you also performed the walk and turn test. Did he perform that test?
So I attempted that test with him. I explained the direction for him multiple times. While in the instructed position, he would not remain balanced. We would continuously look for a different surface that he wanted to find that was more flat. And we just couldn't find something that worked for him, or he just couldn't follow directions. So I just ended that task and did not complete it with him.
Okay. In your opinion, were the surfaces that you were trying to get him to perform the test on adequate?
They were.
Okay. Was there anything specific that he was complaining about with the surface?
I can't recall specifically, but he would just want to move and try a different spot. We even actually, I think, if I remember, the last place we went was actually a completely flat surface that was like the porch to the ranch bar, and we still couldn't finish the test.
Okay. And you said those are the only 2 tests you performed on that night with Mr. Thomas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now I'm still wanting to talk about the charge of driving under the influence. What, if anything, did you do next in your investigation relating to that charge?
So I determined that he was impaired, and I placed him under arrest, and then I continued to investigate further with the victim in this case. And also,
I'm gonna circle back to that in a minute. Was he ultimately given some type of a chemical test, either breath or blood?
He was given a breath test, a chemical breath test on the Intoxilizer 8000.
And where was that performed?
At the Duchesne County Jail.
Okay. Did you observe Baker?
I did. I continuously observed him for 15 minutes prior to having him submit to that test.
Okay. Did you check the inside of his mouth?
I did.
Okay. And did he voluntarily blow into the intoxilizer?
He did.
What was the result on that?
0.312 BRAC.
And were there any abnormalities or anything that concerned you with that test?
No.
Did the machine indicate that he had given a sufficient breath sample?
Yes, it showed 3 liters of breath volume.
Okay. During the course of your investigation, were you able to determine whether or not he had previously been charged or convicted of a driving under the influence offense?
Yes, I found a prior conviction in Wyoming, I believe it was, in 2016.
Okay. Your Honor, if I could be made a presenter, I'd like to share a certified prior conviction.
And, Your Honor, for the basis of this hearing, we'll stipulate to that.
Okay.
Just stipulate to sharing it, Daniel, or just stipulating to that prior?
To the prior and the entering.
Okay.
Just
and we don't
for
need
this
to
hearing,
worry-
though.
Okay.
We don't need to worry about sharing the screen then, Your Honor. Okay, now, Deputy Cox, you told me that while you were still on scene and that you went to talk to, I think you referred to him as the victim in the case. So going back to that point, who did you go talk to?
So I went over to the camper and spoke to Raylene Lamoureux.
Okay. And what were you going over to talk to her about?
So the initial report that I was going over there to begin with was that the defendant was causing her problems. So I went to find out what was going on.
Okay. And did she give you the information that you were looking for?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm an objector. That's hearsay.
Well, I'm not asking him to say what she said. I'm just asking if she gave him the information. So it's just to show effect on listener at this point.
Would withdraw that objection, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, CJ, I didn't notice if you got the answer on the record or not. Did she give you the information that you asked for?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll talk to her more specifically in a few minutes on that. Based on the information that you had gathered, we already talked about the DUI, but the information that you gathered in your conversation with her, did you book Mr. Thomas in or arrest him on any other additional charges?
Yes, he was booked in on criminal trespass of a dwelling and disorderly conduct.
Okay, Your Honor, the state has no further questions for Deputy Cox at this point.
All right, Mr. Irvin?
Yes, Officer Cox, I'm going to kind of go backwards. You took him down the station. Did you observe Baker separately or on the way to the station?
At the station.
Okay, and after you watched that, he didn't burp or vomit or anything while he was there?
Correct.
Okay, and then you had him blow into the machine and it had a satisfactory sample.
Correct.
When was the last time that machine was certified, if you know?
I don't know, but they're certified regularly by the State Highway Patrol.
And just for my information, you're not the one that does that certification. The Highway Patrol has a person come out and does that.
Correct.
And if we asked for it, you'd be able to provide the history and when that was completed?
I believe there's a history book with it at the jail.
Thank you. Now, when you arrived on scene, you didn't go straight to the car. You went over to where for lack of a better term, the bar is?
So when I was there investigating my original case?
Yes.
Correct.
And you had your body cam on.
Yes.
And if I recall correctly from watching the video, when you got there, Mr. Thomas is there.
From the first incident originally a couple hours prior. Yes.
Yeah. And he has the fresh shirt on, if you remember that.
I couldn't remember the shirt. So.
Okay. And at that time, he then left. That's earlier in the day.
That was I don't know if he had left or not. I was investigating something else that didn't necessarily involve him, so I wasn't completely aware of what he was doing. So
Okay. So you arrived later that evening for a second event.
I arrived later that evening because of the first event. It's basically a follow-up.
Thank you. And you found Mr. Thomas. He was sitting in his vehicle.
Correct.
And you don't recall if you touched the engine compartment or not.
I don't recall that I did. I believe the other deputy with me.
Okay. So it wouldn't surprise you if the video, once he got out, you started walking over to a space to do the HGN?
It wouldn't surprise me what?
Once he got out of the vehicle, you walked forward and started the HGN?
I believe so.
Okay. And during the HGN, help me out here. In the video, it shows his head's corked up, kind of looking up. What were you doing testing there? Because your body cam doesn't show his eyes.
So it may just be the position of my body camera that you're seeing.
Okay. So you instructed him and showed him what you're going to do?
Yes.
And then you held the pen about 4 to 6 inches from his nose?
I would say it was further than that, at least 12.
Okay. And then did you go to the right or the left on your first pass?
To the right.
And then did you hold it when you got to the right, or did you go to the right and then back over to the left?
I don't know. I routinely usually do these. You're probably thinking of the medical portion, maybe. I'm not sure.
I'm just going through the NHTSA conditions for performing an HGN.
Yeah. Well, so that would depend on which pass I'm on, or whether I'm doing the medical portion or distinct and sustained.
So on the first pass, aren't you supposed to look for pupil size and tracking?
So that's the medical portion. So that's not considered a pass or where I'm looking for clues. That's just where I'm making sure that his pupils are equal size, that he doesn't have a resting nystagmus, and that his eyes track equally.
Did you ask him if he'd ever had a head injury?
I don't recall. I usually ask that, but I couldn't recall if I did or not.
And then just to understand, as you did each pass, you also did the maximum deviation on each eye?
Yes.
And that was at 45 degrees?
Yes. That's as far, so that's the maximum deviation isn't necessarily 45 degrees. It's just until I can see the whites in his eyes.
Okay. And you're able to still see the pupil, so you can see if it moves or not.
Correct.
And your testimony today is that it did have the deviation at each max.
Correct. There was a continued jerk in it after leaving it to the side.
So you had 6 out of 6 clues, and you wanted to make sure that he was under the influence before arresting him, correct?
Correct.
And so you had him go to do the 9-step walk and turn. Can't speak today.
Walk and turn task.
And if I recall adequately from the video, you did show him how to stand.
I believe I showed him multiple times. It's obviously been a while, but I remember doing this over and over, I feel like.
And he would stand, put one foot in front of the other, and then stop.
I believe so.
And then you'd move to another surface, and he'd do the same thing.
Yes.
And I believe he eventually went into what looks like a barn or a covered structure.
So that's the porch I was speaking of earlier. That's the front of the bar. So I was trying to do my best and give him the benefit of the doubt, and we were trying to find the flattest surface, and it just wasn't working.
And it's at that point that you took him under arrest?
Correct.
Now, backing up, when you opened the truck door, the truck was not running.
Correct.
And he's sitting in the driver's seat.
Correct.
And he states that you asked him how long he'd been there.
I believe so.
And he said since he called you. Do you recall that?
I don't recall. This has been quite a while now. So.
Do you remember him holding up his cell phone to show you the number he called?
I don't.
Okay. And when he got out of when you arrested him, were his car keys in his front pocket?
So from what I had remembered is when I'd walked up to the vehicle, when he was next to the victim's camper, they were in his hand. I could see the key in his hand. So where they were after that, I can't recall.
Okay. And Grant, I just want to play the beginning of his video. Do you have the ability to play that? Where he approaches the truck and opens the door. That's all I would play.
I don't have it pulled up, but give me a second. I probably can.
I have it as Dylan sitting in truck video, but maybe Laura may have marked it differently.
Okay. If you can make me a presenter, Your Honor, I have the video.
Looks like you are.
Okay, are you guys able to see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just let me know when you want me to stop it, Daniel.
It's after he shuts the door to the truck.
Okay.
What's that?
He's back there being a big cab. He left this whole thing drunk on gas. He pulled in here.
Who is it?
Dylan. He's stuck there. Still doing
So you need a still thing?
Yeah. He's something back there calling us. Oh,
Where are we going? Dylan, what are you doing, buddy? Kicked me out. They just kicked you out? Did you just pull in here in this thing?
I don't know.
That's a long time ago.
I called you.
When did you call me? Ooh, what's your phone number?
7.
I don't have a 307 number, buddy. Nobody from that's called me.
20 minutes ago.
Okay. You dialed the wrong number. Those are 7s. You called somebody else. Those 2 are supposed to be 7s. Oh, okay. Why don't you hop out here with me, bud? Okay, come on up the front of the truck for me, please. Hang out there with him for 1 second.
Okay, right there.
Will you sign a statement?
That-
Someone driving here.
That's all.
Everyone's in there today. I'm headed.
Actually, I'll just get it on body camera.
You can stop it there.
Lying right here.
So, officer, you could see he had both hands on his phone.
No, so when I'm walking up, you're missing part that you can't see, which is where that key is. But you can see him put his hand down, and then he picks up the phone. I'm assuming he either left the key on the seat or in his pocket. I'm not sure.
And if I understand correctly, that would be his left hand.
I believe it was his right hand.
Grant, can you go back to that right there where he approaches?
Are you able to see it again?
Yes.
Tell me when I'm about where you want.
Like about 10 seconds right there, you can see, I think the officer's talking about his hand there. So if you go a little bit before that. And I think you're right. Yeah, just start it right there.
Dylan, what are you doing, buddy? Kicked me out.
So there's no phone in his hand.
Did you just pull in here in this thing? That's a long time ago.
So you can see his left hand moving.
I can see his left hand. I can't see his right hand, though.
What's your phone number?
So you don't know if he has the keys in his right hand or not.
Not on my video.
This is your video.
I know, but I can't see it in my video. So what I'm telling you is from my memory when I went there, I could see a key in his hand. Walking up to him.
Okay. Thanks, Grant. That's all.
You called somebody else. Those two are supposed to be.
But right there in the video, you can't see the key.
Not on my video, I can't.
And when you took him into custody, the keys were in his pocket.
So I can't recall at this time where the keys were, whether they were in the truck or in his pocket.
They weren't in the ignition.
No.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay.
No further questions for Deputy Cox.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy. Is he free to go?
He is.
Hey, Deputy, thank you. You're free to go.
Unless you need him for earlier.
Before he goes, can I just have a quick breakout with him? And I apologize for being late, Your Honor. And someone else scheduled a hearing on top of yours without consulting me.
Who do you want to have a breakout with?
Just Daniel Urban. I just want to make sure we covered everything. I trust him, but I just want to double check.
Give me just a moment.
Should be brief. Thank you, Your Honor, for your indulgence. We're prepared.
Okay.
Can I call my next witness?
Yes.
The state calls Raylene Lamoureux.
All right. Ms. Lamoureux, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Are you able to turn on your video?
Okay.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give in this matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Ray, will you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
It's Raylene Lamoureux, Lamoureaux.
Okay. And tell me, if you would, how you're currently employed.
I work for the Defa Dude Ranch.
And did you work in that position on July 2nd of 2023?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm going to have some questions for you about what you observed on that day. But before I do you have any concerns with testifying today?
I do. I have just been diagnosed with MS, so I just want you guys to know the shaking that you're seeing will happen throughout this court, and so I just wanted the judge to know that I'm not disagreeing, or this motion that you're seeing right now doesn't have anything to do with that I'm disagreeing or agreeing with anything that's happening. It's a medical issue that I have right now.
All right.
Does it affect your memory at all?
No, it doesn't affect my memory. It's just that I have not been seen by the neurologist yet to get on my medications to stop this. Sometimes my voice will be very, very shaky and sound like I'm being very emotional. I just don't have any control over it.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to us, and I'm sure everyone will take that into consideration. Directing your attention to July 2nd of 2023, do you remember having contact with Dylan on that day?
Yes, I had quite a bit of contact with him all day long.
Okay, and the questions that I'm going to ask you are later in the day. Do you recall him coming to your trailer?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how did he get to your trailer, if you know?
Well, I heard a truck pull up outside my trailer. So I peeked out the window and I noticed that it was Dylan's truck. And I watched Dylan get out of the truck and come up to my trailer door.
When you say that you watched him get out of the truck, which door did he get out of?
He got out of the driver's side door.
Was there anyone else in the truck?
No, just him.
Explain to me, if you could, where he parked in relation to your trailer.
In front of.
Okay.
So like where my propane tanks are, so he would be in front of the propane tanks.
Okay, and where is the window on your trailer in relation to his truck? I'm just wondering what your view
right
was.
out that front window, so I'm looking out over the propane tanks, and then he's directly in front of those propane tanks.
Okay, so was the driver's side or the passenger side closer to your trailer, or the front or back? I'm just trying to figure out.
Okay, the front's closest to my trailer, so his hood would be closest to my trailer.
Okay.
So
And
when he got out of the truck, he would just walk straight to my side to my door.
Okay. Was there anyone else that you saw in the truck with him at that time?
No.
Okay. After you observed him get out of the truck, what happened next?
He knocked on my door, so I answered the door, and he said, "Can I come in?" And I had observed that he had still been drinking. His eyes were all red and bloodshot, and he was kind of swaying back and forth. And we had had another issue earlier on in the night, and he had said that that gentleman was down in his bunkhouse and that he was scared to go to the bunkhouse, that maybe this gentleman would hurt him. So I told him he could come in and he could sit on the couch.
Okay, did he come in?
Yes, he did. And at first, he just sat there, and he was just kind of just sitting there. And then he just kept repeating over and over, he was scared to go to the bunkhouse because of the other gentleman down there.
Okay.
And then a few minutes later, a knock came on my door. And I opened it, and it was one of my friends, and they asked me to come outside the trailer. So I walked outside the trailer, and they told me that Dylan had brought this other gentleman that we were having problems with back to the ranch and put him in the bunkhouse. And so I went back in the trailer, and I told Dylan to leave, that I didn't want him there, that I was tired of being lied to, and I asked him politely to leave, and he wouldn't leave.
What did he do when you first asked him to leave? Was he still sitting on the couch?
He was, and then the next time I asked him to leave, he stood up.
Let me stop you there for just 1 second,
Okay.
Ray. When you asked him to leave the first time, you'd said that he was sitting on the couch. Did he stand up at that point? Did he make any movement?
No, he just told me, he goes, "Somebody else is lying to you. I wouldn't lie to you."
Okay.
And
did he tell you that he wasn't going to leave, or did he just stay there?
He just stayed there.
Okay. Did you ask him to leave again?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me what happened on that time.
Then that's when he stood up and he was swaying back and forth. And so I said, "You need to get out now. I don't want you here."
Okay. Did he leave that time?
No.
Did he say anything else to you after he stood up?
No, he just said, "I'm not leaving." And I said, "Yes, you are. This is my trailer. Now get the F out."
Okay. And then what happened next?
Then there were 2 more times I asked him to get out, and then then somebody else helped me get him out.
Okay. What were his responses these next few times? And what I'm kind of wondering, let me ask it in a different way, is you had said that you told him to get the F out. Was the exchange getting heated?
Not really heated, just like, "No, I'm not leaving. No, I'm not leaving."
Was he being loud when he was saying no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And
Was there anyone else in the trailer when you first asked him to leave?
no.
Okay.
They were all down by the cafe.
Okay.
And then I think
Did anyone else come to the trailer while you were asking him to leave?
not until like the 5th time. And then out of, I told him that he needed to walk down to the bunkhouse and go to bed. I said,
Okay.
leave your truck here and just go to the bunkhouse.
And did he comply with your request?
No, he went and got in his truck.
Okay, but he did leave your trailer eventually.
Finally,
How much time would you estimate passed from the first time you asked him to leave until he finally did?
probably about 15 minutes.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about how you were feeling during that 15 minutes.
I was feeling scared. I had already had a very, very bad night and had been hurt in the saloon earlier that night on a different occasion. So I was already scared. I had been scared all night. So,
Okay. Okay, and tell me a little bit more about these other people. Did someone else come into the trailer before he left, or
yes, someone
who
came
was
in
it
and
that
sat.
came?
Valdez, my head bartender. He
Okay.
came and sat in my trailer with me.
Okay. Did anyone else come to the trailer, to your knowledge?
No. Well, Brock and everybody was outside of the trailer, but nobody else came into my trailer.
Okay. Who else was outside?
There was Brock, Sandy, Leo, and then Valdez. But Valdez was in with me in the last little bit.
Okay. The state has no further questions for Ms. Lamoureux, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Irvin?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, the state rests.
All right. Does the defense, would the defense like to call any witness?
Your Honor, I believe Ms. Fuller's advised Mr. Thomas that he can testify, and we've suggested he not do so at this time. And I think he's going to follow that admonition. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so we would rest, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd ask both the court and Mr. Irvin at this point if you'd prefer to make arguments and a ruling on this case, or if I should call my first witness on the next case.
Well, let's take this case first, and I'll just ask my question so that you can address it. Looking at the elements of the various statutes, the only one that's in question in my mind, based on the evidence and notes I've taken, would be count 3, the disorderly conduct. If you could address the elements there, that would be good.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I believe, isn't that an infraction and therefore not subject to a prelim?
I still have to bind, I don't know, I thought I had to bind over everything in a prelim.
My understanding is B and under doesn't need a binding, so we would stipulate to a binding on the infraction.
Okay. All right. You want to argue it, Mr. Charles?
We feel that the elements are covered, Your Honor. On the DUI, Ms. Lamoureux saw him actually driving up to the scene to get out of the car, come into her trailer, and then eventually exit and get back into the vehicle. We're relying on her testimony seeing him drive to establish the element of driving. He goes through the field sobriety test, as you've heard, eventually blows .312 as the BAC, and in this case, the defense had stipulated to the one prior conviction. On the trespass, he had originally entered with Ms. Lamoureux's consent, but unlawfully remained She says that she had to ask him to leave multiple times, that he remained there for 15 minutes, kind of argued with her about what was going on. I believe that the elements there are met, since she says that the effect that it had on her was that she was scared. We think that he was reckless as to whether or not his presence would cause her to fear for her safety. And then on the disorderly, sounds like the defense is stipulated, so I won't make argument on that.
All right, Mr. Irvin, do you want to respond?
Your Honor, you have her testimony says she looks out the car and saw him there. I will defer to the court on whether you recall her driving it or not. But when the officer shows up, keys are not in the ignition. Keys can't be seen in his hand. They're in his front pocket. He says he moved that car there earlier, like a couple hours. So I don't believe the actual physical control has been seen. As for the argument at prelim, I do think the state has shown enough for further with the BAC and those elements. So I think the defense would come down on whether or not actual physical control for this hearing. As to the criminal trespass, and I believe the court can take a look, and maybe I'm mistaken, but nothing in the evidence showed that this was a dwelling. It says she's sitting on a bed and there's a couch and it's a trailer, and there's case law on both sides saying a trailer is a dwelling and it's not. She never stated this is her residence, this is where she was living. So I don't believe the element of a dwelling was met, and I would ask that this be bound over as a B, not an A. He was asked to leave several times and did not. I think that meets the elements of criminal trespass. But as to a dwelling for that enhancement, I don't believe that element was shown at this hearing.
I believe that it was, Your Honor. We could recall her and ask her that one question if she was living in it, but I think that it is established.
And, Your Honor, I'd object to recalling her. The state rested, so the testimony was given. But I would defer.
We can always amend and come back if it's not bound over. And so for the sake of efficiency, if the court has a question on that, I would ask that we do it today rather than going through that process.
I'll allow the state to reopen. Ms. Lamoureux, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
All right. Will you please turn your video back on?
Yep, it's on.
You're still under oath. Mr. Charles has some additional questions.
Okay.
And I'm just going to ask you one, Ray. Were you living in that trailer?
Yes, I was.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Right.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. With regard to an actual physical control of a vehicle, the elements, court looks at the totality of the circumstances. That's whether the defendant was asleep or awake when discovered. When Officer Cox approached the vehicle, he was awake. The position of the automobile, it wasn't on a roadway. It was parked next to a trailer. I don't know how that plays into this. It was not alongside a highway or something, but the next one is whether the motor was running. It was not at the time Deputy Cox located him. Whether the defendant was positioned in the driver's seat, the defendant was positioned in the driver's seat. Whether the defendant was the sole occupant, the defendant was the sole occupant. Whether the defendant had possession of the ignition key, the defendant did have possession of the ignition key. And what I thought I viewed in the video as I watched it was, as the defendant exited the video, he reached into his lap between his legs, he picked up the key, placed it in his pocket as he walked to accompany Deputy Cox. So it appeared that he had the key. It may have been in his hand or not when the deputy approached. We couldn't see that from the video. Eventually, it looked like it was placed in his lap, and later it was picked up from his lap and put in his pocket. The defendant's apparent ability to start and move the vehicle, he apparently did have the ability to start and move the vehicle. There's nothing that would have kept him from starting and moving the vehicle. How the car got to where it was found, it sounds like the defendant, or it looks like from the evidence, the defendant drove it to where it was found when the deputy approached. So under totality of the circumstances, there is probable cause to believe that the defendant was in actual physical control of the vehicle. The other elements have all been met by evidence with regard to the DUI and the prior offense. With regard to criminal trespass, court finds that the elements, there is probable cause to believe that the defendant committed the offense. There is evidence as to each of the elements, both with regard to criminal trespass, and then the defense doesn't argue anything on the disorderly. So the court binds the defendant over to the district court on all three charges of that information. All right, let's go then to the newer case, 038. All right, Charles, go ahead.
Okay, the state calls Deputy Matt Borelli.
All right, Deputy Borelli, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give in this matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, before we start on the evidence on this one, Your Honor, I'm making a motion to dismiss count 4, the reckless driving.
Okay.
Hey, Deputy Borelli, will you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
I didn't hear any objections, so I'll grant.
No.
I will grant the motion. Count 4 is dismissed.
My name is Matthew Borelli. Last name B-O-R-R-E-L-L-I.
Okay, and tell me, if you would, how you're currently employed.
I am currently employed with Duchesne County Sheriff's Department.
And did you hold that position on January 20th of 2024?
I did.
Do you recall if you were on duty on that day?
I was.
During your shift, did you have reason to have contact with Dylan Thomas?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about what led up to that.
So I was currently coming off the 208 just at the intersection of US 40. When I was currently at the stop sign, I believe I was actually just getting done with a different traffic stop, and I observed Dylan's vehicle turning left. And while he was turning left, I observed that there was no blinker being used. When he passed in front of my vehicle, I observed that he didn't have a seatbelt on either.
Okay, based on what you'd observed, what, if anything, did you do?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Based on what you just described, what action did you take?
I decided to make a traffic stop.
Okay, and did Mr. Thomas stop?
Yes, he did.
And at that point, were you able to confirm that he was the driver?
Yes.
Hey, can you see multiple windows on your screen right now?
Yes.
Are you able to see Mr. Thomas in one of those windows?
Yes, I can.
And can you describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing a red T-shirt.
Okay, may the record reflect he's indicated the defendant.
Yes.
Okay, what did you do next, Officer Borelli?
After I activated my lights and performed the stop, he pulled over to the side, and I made contact with him on the driver's side. That's when I was able to verify that he was the sole occupant in the vehicle.
Okay, and was he wearing a seatbelt when you got up to his window?
No.
Okay, what did you do next?
I asked for his driver's license and insurance.
Okay, and did he produce those?
He was able to produce a driver's license, but was unable to produce a valid insurance card for the vehicle.
Okay, and was his driver's license valid?
No. I was unable to find that out until later.
Okay, let's skip ahead a little bit and go ahead and deal with that now. When you say something happened later, tell us what you found in your investigation.
I was able to verify that he was alcohol restricted and that his driver's license was not valid.
Okay. Can you be any more specific? And it's just what you remember about his driver's license not being valid.
Driving on a denied.
Okay. Okay. You also said that it was alcohol restricted. At that point in time, did you have any reason to believe that he was under the influence?
Not at the time. But usually when people have alcohol restrictions on their driver's license, that usually indicates that they are previous charged with DUIs or any type of alcohol.
Okay. At any point, did you have reason to believe that he was under the influence?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. How did you first notice that he may have been under the influence of alcohol?
I started noticing when he made a phone call to his dad, and I was able to observe that his words were very slow, he was slurring a lot, and he was unable to hold a conversation with his father trying to get basic questions.
Okay, let me get a little bit more background information from you about the call. Where was he when he placed the call?
He was in the driver's seat.
Okay, and at what point of the stop was that call placed?
During the beginning.
Okay, why, if you know, did he call his dad?
He called his dad so that way he could get a valid insurance card, which he believed his father had acquired.
Okay, and when you noticed that you thought he was under the influence of alcohol, what, if any, additional actions did you take in your investigation related to that?
So I was able to see glossy eyes. I started smelling the odor of alcohol. I started looking around his vehicle to see if I could see any empty beer cans, anything like that, or indications.
Okay, did you see any empty beer cans?
I believe I saw some in the back, but I was not able to confirm them at the time.
Okay. Based on what you observed at that point, what did you do next?
I asked him to step out of the vehicle to perform a field sobriety test.
Okay. And did he comply with that request?
Yes, he did.
Did you do field sobriety tests?
Yes, I did.
What was the first test that you performed?
I performed the horizontal gaze nystagmus. I checked for the eyes and double-check everything for equal tracking, make sure his smooth pursuit, and the nystagmus on sustaining.
Okay. And before performing the test, did you give him instructions on how to perform it?
Yes.
Okay. And did he comply with those instructions when you started the test?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit more about the test. Are you looking for certain clues?
Yes, I am.
How many clues are you looking for in this test?
In this test, there's actually 6 clues.
Okay, and I'm not going to ask you all the details about what you did step by step through the test, but in the end, how many clues did you observe?
In the end, I observed 6 out of 6.
Okay, and what was the next field sobriety test you performed?
The next one I performed would be called the walk and turn.
Okay, and did you instruct him on how to perform that test?
Yes, I did.
And did he comply with your instructions by performing the test?
He did.
Are you also looking for clues in this test?
I am.
How many clues are you looking for here?
At that test, there's 8 clues.
Okay, and based upon his performance, how many clues did you observe specifically for Mr. Thomas?
On that one, for Mr. Thomas, I observed 8 out of 8 clues.
Okay. And did you perform any additional field sobriety tests?
I did.
What was the next test you performed?
The next test I performed was the one-leg stand.
Okay, and did you instruct him on this test?
Yes, I did.
How many clues are there for this one?
This one contains 4 clues.
Okay, and did he perform the test as instructed?
Yes.
And how many clues did you observe?
I observed 3 out of 4.
Okay. Did you do any additional field sobriety tests?
I did not.
Okay. Now, I'm wanting to talk to you about just the DUI charge right now. We'll circle back and talk about a few of these others in a minute. But what, if anything, did you do next in relation to your investigation on the DUI?
So I confirmed that he was the sole occupant in the vehicle, and I believe that he was impaired enough to he should not be operating a vehicle, and I placed him under arrest.
Okay. Did you do any kind of breath or blood test?
Yes, I did.
Which one did you do?
I did the breath.
Okay. Now, let me clarify here. Did you do a portable breath test, or did you take him to the jail and do the intoxilizer, or both?
I did both.
Okay. Um, I assume then that you did the portable test first.
Yes.
Were the
While at the
results on that positive for alcohol?
yes, they were.
Okay. And you said that you did both, so let's talk about the intoxilizer test. Where was that conducted?
That was conducted at the Duchesne County Sheriff's Department, or at the jail.
Okay. And what was the result on that test?
I believe the result was a .235 BRAC at
Okay.
a 3.87 liter of breath volume.
Okay. And is that volume adequate for a valid test?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now let's go back and talk about some additional charges. Did you charge him with carrying a dangerous weapon while under the influence of alcohol?
Yes, I did.
And what was the weapon that this charge was based upon?
I believe it was a .44 revolver Magnum.
And where was the gun located?
It was located close in the center of the front seat, but kind of slightly to the passenger side.
Was
It was
it?
still in reach of the driver.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. And do you recall if it was loaded?
It was loaded.
Okay. And when I ask and you say loaded, just to make sure that we're on the same page, does that mean there was a bullet in the chamber or just in the magazine?
So with a revolver, there's no magazine. These are actually bullets inside the cylinders. I believe it was a 6-shot, and I do know that there was 2 rounds that were discharged or actually fired, and the other ones were still live rounds.
Do you know if the cylinder in the next firing position had a bullet in it?
I could not recall.
Okay. Was it in any type of a holster or anything?
It was contained in a leather holster.
And what would have to be done to remove it from the holster?
A simple snap would have to be removed, which contains a leather strap holding the trigger well. So
Okay.
once you pull that strap off, you can remove the weapon.
Okay. And I'm not sure that I am completely clear on where the gun was. Was it in a console or anything of that sort?
No, it was freely on the floorboard. So it was close to the stick shift on the vehicle, just slightly on the passenger side.
Okay. Anything other than a holster that it was contained in?
No.
And you mentioned earlier that you had found he was an alcohol-restricted driver. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Tell me how you first found that out.
So when I ran his driver's license, it provides the history and all the information from the DMV. And when it sends back their information, it tells me if it's denied, restricted, revoked, or anything on their status.
Okay, you talked to us about a phone call that he had made earlier. Did you run his license before or after he made that call?
I believe I made it before. I cannot be sure.
Okay. Okay, and then the one charge that I'm seeing that I haven't talked to you about yet is a taillight violation. Did you observe a problem with his taillights?
Yes.
Explain that to us if you would.
So when we were in the process of doing the traffic stop on the very beginning, I was able to see that the brake lights were not operating.
Okay. When you say they weren't operating, were the taillights on and they just weren't getting brighter? Or were there no lights on at all in the back?
There were no lights on at all.
Okay. Okay, and I have another question for you about the DUI. Did you do a search to see if he had any prior convictions?
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, did you find?
On his criminal history, I was able to find a second offense within 10 years, making it a enhanceable offense for a DUI.
And where was that conviction from?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, Daniel, I'm assuming you're willing to make the same stipulation on this case as the last one.
I am, Your Honor, and I am. Sorry, Your Honor. And I think the court could also find with under judicial notice that it was the same case from prior. I'm presuming it's the Wyoming.
Yes.
I believe so.
I'd stipulate.
Okay. Okay, and then, Your Honor, I'm assuming there will be argument on the second alleged prior. The state is just relying on the case that we just did the prelim on as the second prior, and we can make argument on that if the defense would like later.
Okay.
Okay, the state has no further questions for Deputy Borelli.
Okay, Mr. Irvin, go ahead.
Officer or deputy, what time of day was this when you pulled him over?
It was the morning.
And when he made that left turn, about how far away was he from you where you were stopped?
I would probably say maybe 10, 15 feet.
Thank you. That helps a lot. And so you didn't see the turn signal. Were you to what side of his vehicle were you when you saw it?
I was on his left side.
And when you saw that he didn't have a seatbelt, was that when he was turning or after he had made the turn?
That was in process of him turning and getting into my field of view.
So if I understand correctly, as he turned, he kind of passed by you?
Yes. He turned down from US 40 and turned left onto the road 208, which was the road that I was stationary on.
And as he did so, you were able to look into the vehicle and see him?
Yes.
And you decided to make your stop at that point?
Yes.
And did he take a while to stop, or did he stop pretty quickly?
He stopped pretty quick, I would say.
And if I'm looking at correctly, and from your testimony today, you didn't have any concerns about alcohol use until you saw he was an alcohol-restricted driver?
Not necessarily.
Then help me out. Clarify what other indicia you had.
So I always base every case and every traffic stop for just the evidence that I collect at the time.
And to help me out, what was that?
So, of course, with the alcohol restricted, that is one clue, and then that proceeds to other clues that I began to observe.
Okay, so prior to the alcohol-restricted driver notice, did you see any indicia of alcohol use?
There was signs of glossy eyes, but I did take an effect that it was morning time, and he could have just woken up in the process of everything.
And you testified that he was able to give you your license but could not find the insurance card, correct?
Correct.
Did he fumble and have difficulty getting his license out to give it to you?
I cannot recall.
Did he have difficulty searching for the insurance paperwork, or did he just let you know he didn't have it with him?
He did attempt to search. He did fumble through a lot of paperwork, but I could not take that into account of him being intoxicated at that point of just searching for a random piece of paper. There was a lot of mess inside the glove box, and I take into consideration if they're just looking for a piece of paper in a lot of different areas, and they may not know where it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you went back and ran him for a warrants check and to see what his license was. Was that your next step? And that's when you noticed it was alcohol restricted?
Yes. And I'm also checking to see if the vehicle is insured. Without having the proof of insurance, that's also another indication as well.
Okay. And when it came back alcohol restricted, did it say it was denied at that time, or he's just alcohol restricted?
So on his driver's license, it does show both.
Well, I'm not asking on his driver's license. When you got the call back, okay, let me take this slowly. When you got to your vehicle, you make a call to see if he has any warrants, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
You also called to see what the status of his license is that right?
Correct.
And someone on the line informs you of what that is?
Yes, dispatch informs me of what the valid insurance or if the driver's license is valid.
Now, at that time, did they tell you alcohol restricted and denied, or just alcohol restricted?
So dispatch only told me it was denied. I went back to my patrol vehicle to verify what other statuses his driver's license was holding.
And so in follow-up, you heard it was denied. You had to follow up as to why.
Because he's currently driving on a denied driver's license, so he shouldn't be driving either way.
And so did you call back into dispatch to find out?
No, I have all the information on my computer.
No further questions from this witness, Your Honor.
All right.
No redirect, and the state rests.
Okay. Any witnesses, Mr. Irvin?
No, Your Honor, and I would give the same admonition to Mr. Thomas. I believe he's going to follow it and not testify today.
Okay. Do you wish to argue the case?
I do, Your Honor, as to the enhancement and as to the DUI.
All right. With regard to the enhancement, the issue would be whether the other case that we prelim today qualifies as a prior.
Correct, Your Honor.
I'm going to just have you brief that because I don't know what the law is, and I'll need citation to rule or law.
And that might be easiest. Thank you.
Right.
As to also the DUI, Your Honor, there was no testimony that Baker was completed. There was no testimony as to the checking of the machine, as to he blew enough, the result was given. We don't know about Baker, whether he checked his mouth prior, for how long that happened. And without that evidence, Your Honor, I believe there wasn't enough to show that the machine would be reliable to show the DUI.
That's not correct, Your Honor. And in fact, I think that Rule 7B, subsection B, would say that any argument on the sufficiency or properness of that type of evidence is not even subject to preliminary hearing. But that would be something that would have to come up in a motion to suppress or something. We've covered the elements. The Baker is not an element.
And I would agree with the state, Your Honor. I think they cited 7B correctly.
And there's also enough, taking everything in the light most favorable to the state, there'd be probable cause just on the field sobriety tests alone. All right. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds that there is probable cause to bind the defendant over on the remaining counts that weren't dismissed as indicated. Count 4 is dismissed. The remaining counts are bound over.
Your Honor, I would ask that you would hold off on 1 and allow us to brief it as to what it is, whether it's a third or an A.
I'm going to bind over, and then if you would like to make a motion to reduce the charge based on the law, that's fine.
Understood, Your Honor.
Yeah, so we'll do that. I'm happy to take a look at it when you get the brief filed. Why don't we, let's see, pick a court date. Let's go out a month for arraignment, and if you want to file a motion on that prior, you can have it filed before then.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let's do arraignment if the parties and counsel are available June 25th.
I'm not, Your Honor. I'll be out of the state.
So on June 25th, so you're not going to do it on your regular Monday schedule?
That will be my regular Monday in June.
Okay.
Because of the holiday.
Well, I've got judicial council on the 24th, so I'll be doing court on Tuesday that week, the 25th.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. We can have it done by then. And I don't know if I've informed you yet, Your Honor, but June 30th is my last day. My replacement starts on June 1st, so I'll be training him for the month of June.
Oh, okay. I was unaware of that. So will I have counsel available on Mr. Thomas's case for the 25th?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
You'll
right.
have counsel available every day that you need it.
let's do June 25th then, and we'll just set it at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And that'll just be arraignment.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Grant.
You too, Laura, if you're still there.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.